So let me remind us where we got last week and where we're going this week. Last week we talked about the why, whens, and hows of cosmology. We looked at the purpose of things like planets and moons and stars and these kind of things. We looked at a little bit of evidence of intelligent design, talked about the anthropic principle. Then we looked at some evidence of a young universe, young galaxies, young solar systems. And this week we're going to be mostly focusing on Big Bang cosmology, or cosmology generally speaking, as it relates to the origins of things, such as the origin of stars, the origin of planets, origin of galaxies, and then we'll look at redshift in cosmology. There are several evidences to support the Big Bang. We'll be looking at one of them in particular, redshift, and how we can use that information in a creation cosmology as well. Okay? So that's pretty much going to be the topic of the evening. So let's get started. Remember when we start talking about that much of what we're taught today is taught by astronomers who are convinced that Big Bang cosmology is the law of the land. They're convinced that the universe has come into existence through the Big Bang, and they're only going to present evidence that supports their theory, and they're pretty much going to bury evidence that contradicts it. So you're not going to see much of what I present this evening elsewhere because it doesn't support Big Bang cosmology. Okay? What we're being shown today by the scientific community largely supports their ideology. And remember, there are two worldviews today. You got naturalism versus supernaturalism, right? Or atheism versus theism, evolution versus creation, whatever you want to call them. Those tremendously affect our points of view, our ideologies. And today, astronomers are mostly atheists. I mentioned last week, Nature reported that only 7.5% of the astronomers in the National Academy of Sciences profess a belief in God. Now, it may actually be that there are more than 7.5% in the NAS, but today, if you're a practicing scientist, if you have an actual occupation in the science discipline, and you go start doing things like professing your belief in God, you're going to cause yourself some trouble. You're going to find yourself ostracized quick. The same thing will happen if you go to challenge dogma, like the theory of evolution, or in this case, Big Bang cosmology. Whether you're a creationist, whether you believe in God or not, you go challenging Big Bang cosmology, you're going to cause yourself some trouble. And I'll give you an example of that. So let's start with the origin of stars. Creationists, of course, believe that stars evolved billions of years before the Earth. Theistic evolutionists basically believe the same thing, or what we would call progressive creationists. Progressive creationists is kind of a new name for day-age creationism, commonly held view of Hugh Ross, one of the popular figures promoting progressive creationism or day-age creationism. Whether you're talking about from an evolutionist or a theistic evolution or progressive creationist, they all believe that stars evolved billions of years before the Earth. Whereas the Bible teaches that the Earth was created on day 1, the sun, moon, and the stars were created on day 4. Okay? So there's a significant difference between the creation cosmology as set forth by the Bible and Big Bang cosmology as set forth by naturalists today. So Hugh Ross, the leading proponent of the day-age creationism movement, says this: the entire process of stellar evolution is by natural process alone. We do not have to invoke divine intervention at any stage in the history of the life cycle of stars that we observe. Is such a statement biblical? Let's look at what the Bible has to say about star formation in particular. Psalm: thy heavens, the work of thy fingers, the moon and the stars, which thou hast ordained. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. Lift up your eyes on high, and behold, who hath created these things, that bringeth out their host by number. By the word of the Lord were the heavens made, and all the hosts of them. Pay particular attention to the word all in these passages. Praise him, sun and moon. Praise him, all you shining stars, for he commanded, and they were created. Thou, even thou, O Lord alone, thou hast made heaven, the heaven of heavens, with all their host. So the Bible is rather clear on the fact that God created the stars. This particular passage in here seems telling. He determines the number of the stars and calls them each by name. This tends to describe a finite number of stars. That God created the stars in the beginning, and no longer have stars been created since that time. So let's look at how stars are said to form. Stars are said to form through what is called the nebular hypothesis or nebula theory. We talked about nebulas last month. Anyone remember what a nebula is? How do nebula form? Anyone remember? I'll remind you here in a second then. Okay, a nebula is basically a big cloud of gas and dust. And what can happen is this nebula can start to rotate due to regional movements of the cosmos, and this rotation can cause some condensation. If it start to compress it, if enough compression occurs, you can end up having star formation. But the problem is when you compress something, you generate heat, and when you generate heat, you generate heat pressure, and it causes an outward expansion. So what is typical of nebula is that they expand. What we observe are nebulas in the process of expansion, not the process of a condensation or contraction. This is a NASA that is said to show the entire history of stellar evolution from beginning to end in this one picture. Now they've come in and drawn some arrows, but this is one single picture. This is not a composite. Okay? So a nebula forms through a supernova. A nebula is a gas and dust cloud that forms as a result of a supernova. Okay, here you got a star going supernova right here. Boom, here's your shock wave emanating from it. Starts to disperses further. Now what can happen? You have two general types of nebula. You have dark nebulas and you have nebulas that are called emission nebulas. When these two collide, they can produce odd-looking pillars that are very luminescent, and cosmologists today think that those are star nurseries, what they call them, that they're eggs for stars. And so it is thought that in this dense region right here, where it's brightly luminous right here, that you actually have star formation occurring right there. And here is thought, this little blob right there, they would say that that's a new star being formed. Whether it actually is or not, I'm not sure. But, so this is the story. Star goes supernova, you get a nebula. From nebula, you get stars. Star goes supernova, you get nebula. From nebula, you get stars. I don't know, it just doesn't make any sense to me. It's kind of like on a bug, you get smudge, and then from that smudge, you get a new bug kind of stuff. Kind of sounds like the old spontaneous generation kind of stuff to me, you know what I mean? I mean, there's the debris from a star, okay, star that went supernova, and then suddenly that's going to recondense back and you get another star again. I don't know, just doesn't make sense. Okay, but that's star formation. Don DeYoung, PhD in physics, wrote the book Astronomy in the Bible. I'll be showing you several resources throughout this. I think that's one of the most important things about this. It actually gets you started thinking about something, and then you have to take it from there. You have to buy you some books or videos, these kind of things. All these are available, and you can pick them up at the conference. We're going to have something like 250 titles at the conference, the largest collection we've had there by far. But anyway, this is a really excellent book by Don DeYoung. Don DeYoung says, the complete birth of a star has never been observed. The principles of physics demand some special conditions for star formation and also for a long time period. A cloud of hydrogen gas must be condensed to a sufficiently small size so that gravity dominates. In space, however, almost every gas cloud is light years in size, hundreds of times greater than the critical size needed for a stable star. As a result, outward gas pressure causes these clouds to spread out farther, not contract. That's what we see in these nebulae. We see that they expand, not contract. Fred Whipple from the Smithsonian Institute says, precisely how a section of interstellar cloud collapses gravitationally into a star is still a challenging theoretic problem. Astronomers have yet to find an interstellar cloud in the actual process of collapse. Some of these quotes are a little old. Hans Alfvén, from a Nobel Prize winner, says there is general belief that stars are forming by gravitational collapse. In spite of vigorous efforts, no one has yet found any observational indications of confirmation. Thus, the generally accepted theory of stellar formation may be one of 100 unsupported dogmas which constitute a large part of present-day astrophysics. That's what science is all about, right? You form a theory, theory becomes dogma, dogma dominates the scientific community for some time, right? Let's look at one more. Despite numerous efforts, we have yet to directly observe the process of stellar formation. The origin of stars represents one of the most fundamental unsupported bombs of contemporary astrophysics. So you get in the picture. They claim they know that stars are forming, but they have just yet to see them. Interesting. Nonetheless, after the of the Hubble Space Telescope, they started generating pictures that they claimed were clear evidence of stellar formation. These aforementioned stellar